my fellow Americans? Are we reaping our harvest of greed? Have we built our house on sinking sand? Why are we being ugly Americans?
Welcome to Weekdays Live. This is CJ Holmes, founder of Homeowners for Justice, and your host for today's show. And I would like to start today by thanking especially Michelle Schacht for the song that we used to open this Weekdays Live shows with. It's so well written. It really is what we're facing. And I want to remind everybody that it's all about the currency. It really is. The people of the world, this is John F. Kennedy, I'm going to read it to you, would rather be comforted by a lie than hurt by the truth. This is why we are in this vicious circle. We are constantly having revolutions and putting in place new governments, but still using money. Money will, as sure as the sun will rise tomorrow, corrupt and enslave a nation. Every unit of currency is created by private companies with no regulations. All money is created out of debt and loaned out with the application of interest, which is literally impossible to pay back. Our national debt can never be repaid, and thus we are enslaved. All of us, until we replace the current monetary system. Truer words were never spoken. Thanks, John. So today, what I would like to do is share with you, I feel that we need to do something a little different. So today is the last Weekdays Live show per se. I'm going to break it into two parts. Short state of the affairs updates as necessary, as things happen. Blast something out, fairly short. That'll be on a playlist by itself. Everything is on the playlist in YouTube. Please subscribe to the playlist, share it, and subscribe to the live stream so that you'll know when we're sending out a new show. Then the other aspect is attorneys' discussions of foreclosure defense and foreclosure fights. And those are topics specifically related either to one lender or one state or one type of state, either judicial or non-judicial states. So as we put those programs together, then I'm going to give you some advance notice, and their time is going to change. I'm going to put them typically in the evening session, starting somewhere probably around 5 Pacific time, which would be 8 Eastern time, so that everybody fighting foreclosure, even if they're working, they can join in. The whole idea is to get a discussion going and to get people that need this information involved in getting it. So the times are going to be shifting around. State of affairs will going to be random and whenever, but the foreclosure fight discussions are going to be focused on that state or topic or bank, and specifically what pleadings will or will not do or don't work, or might not work, because that's where everybody is at right now when they're fighting foreclosure. So that's what I'm planning to do. I think this is really going to be more useful, and everything I'm uploading to YouTube literally right after the show. So things are available. Send out the YouTube list. You know that on the live stream library, all of those links are YouTube links. Now, I did want to start right away with the foreclosures, what is working and what is not, because there's some really unpleasant developments that I want to address. And I'm look to the future. I'm a few months or maybe even a year ahead. I mean, I see what's coming, and that's one of the things that I try to bring to you. So first, let's summarize what has been working and what has not. And before we get right there on that summary, because it's really pretty quick, I have a sheet for it, but I wanted to point out, here's a couple of articles. This is just 2 weeks from the last show. Our first-time buyers and endangered species. Well, yeah, and I've been telling you that. So for us, it's no surprise. Obviously, for a lot of people that have only been listening to the blather coming out of mainstream media and the newspapers are going, what's this about? You and I already know. And here is another article just submitted today. U.S. home resales surprise drop. You and I aren't surprised. It's no surprise. I've been telling you to expect this. So we're coming to the end of the price peak. Be warned, if you have any property in any equity that you're not living in or need to have for some reason, I highly recommend you sell it because prices will continue to drop. Get whatever equity you can right now. It's my recommendation. Now, here's what is working and what is not working in foreclosure defense. Robo-signing doesn't work. They lose their appeal claims. We're finding that produce the note doesn't work. These pleadings do not work. And in over 13 states, filing a foreclosure defense against MERS does not work. Here's the quickie little summary. Robo-signing, showing the note, MERS, they do not work. One of these articles talks about an attorney who is suckering in fees from people for this type of defense, even though he already knows it doesn't work. So now the owners are being preyed on by predator attorneys who are trying to stay alive themselves and trying to feed their families. So, it's rats eating each other on the ship as it goes down. Sorry for that picture, but that's what I see. Now, these pleadings may delay the foreclosure or they may work, forcing the bank to prove title ownership. The other thing in California is, stop it getting an injunction because of dual tracking. They're working with you on a loan mod, they're foreclosing. That's now illegal, and you can go to court and get a fairly timely injunction on that one issue. And that issue basically is the top level that comes right back to this one, which is force the bank to prove title ownership. This is the key that is working in Texas. Now, you've probably already been reading on the screen, nothing will work if the PATH Act passes. And this is the danger we face and why I want you to understand that perhaps in your situation, listen to what I'm saying and examine your own position. Foreclosure may just be a distraction that keeps something even more important from your attention. So please, it is not the end of the world if they take the house. Please remember that. It is the end of the world if you end up dying over it. But pay attention. Here's the PATH Act. Oh, this is what some people, sorry, I forgot about this little link. Oops, backing up. In Irvington, New Jersey, a whole bunch of groups got together and they started to get the word out that, foreclosure owners weren't alone, and so they've gotten together and had strength in numbers, and they are going to their city to demand these things. Federal and state criminal investigations of lender wrongdoing. County prosecutors must investigate wrongful lender claims of foreclosure standing for possible criminal violations. Comprehensive and uncompensated write-downs of overvalued mortgage bubble principals to reflect the true market value of homes. This is the list right here that I've highlighted that they're demanding. And we can demand, but I want you to understand that, again, none of this matters. Even if they get their electeds to support this and start to push on this, the PATH Act would overrule all of that. And this is the danger that we face on the property ownership in this country. This is a new House bill that wipes mortgage fraud clean for the banksters. This is written by Suzanne Posel. She's an excellent writer, Occupy Corporatism. You're going to be hearing a little video from her in just a few minutes if you continue to listen. But this is the House Financial Services Committee headed by Chair Jeb Hensarling has approved the proposed bill entitled Protecting American Taxpayers and Homeowners Act. And it's being sold to the American public as a way to create sustainable housing finance systems. Sounds wonderful. You know, it's all about the words and how they manipulate these words. And so as we come down here, you'll see who supports this. They're coming up with another MERS lookalike, NMDB, and it's a database, privately held. And the whole point of what they're going to be doing is to get out of the MERS tangle in the lawsuits. Either they didn't recognize that owners would fight back so hard and go to court and clog the courts, and in some cases win or force them to settle and lose their right to foreclose on homes based on the lack of evidence that they hold title to the property. So now PATH, this is what they're doing. The technocrats have devised a way to take the homes from all homeowners, regardless of whether or not they've previously won foreclosure litigation, are in the process of litigation, and would file a complaint with the courts at a future date. Are you listening? Even if you've won, they can go back and take the house. One of the outcomes of PATH would be the right of the technocrats to stop current legal standing of the homeowners in court with regard to foreclosure litigation. Without that provision, what PATH will do is stop the homeowner from being able to sue to stop the foreclosure. And one of the biggest advantages of PATH would be for the technocrats to reopen foreclosure litigation that was ruled on in favor of the homeowner. Just as with criminal law, the right of protection being retried for a crime is protected under the Jeopardy Clause. The criminal version of the Jeopardy Clause works much the same of the criminal counterpart, or the civil version. Similar. Jeopardy can terminate. There's no jeopardy in these four cases: after acquittal, after dismissal, after a mistrial, and on appeal after conviction. What that means is they could go under the threat of having the case reopened under the new evidence argument, and they could go back against the homeowner, simply open a new case with the new law, which would empower them to bring this law in as new evidence, and they could circumvent jeopardy. So this is why I'm telling you, you need to look honestly and very harshly at your situation. I cannot advise you. I don't know your situation. But it may be there are better things to spend your time and money on right now than fighting foreclosure. Here is the copy of the draft. It will be linked in the comments after the show. This is the actual House bill. And here is a petition that we can sign to stop the PATH Act, because it would be the right of banks to stop current legal standing of homeowners in court with regard to foreclosure litigation. They would replace MERS, and they would open old lawsuits with new evidence and reclaim the property. They're going to take the property anyway. That is the point I'm getting at. This is a humongous, very strong tyranny that we're fighting, and I want you to understand that's what we're looking at. And of course, here's another petition to help Elizabeth Warren reign in Wall Street, and it can't hurt to sign the petitions, I guess. However, I'm not very positive that the petitions are going to do a whole lot, because the tyranny we're facing is that the people in the electeds have already been bought off. We already know that, without a doubt. And the game, the strategy is already in place, and they're doing trials of, trial martial law and trial currency and changes, and they're practicing. And I feel it's very, very important that you see the rest of these links, you listen up, and then really pass this out to your family, friends, and neighbors, and take it very seriously yourself. The first thing I wanted to talk about as we move into the money, because it is all about the money. I've been talking about the gold, and you know that I've been talking about the fact that they don't have enough gold in the vaults. They've been overselling the gold, just like they fractionalize the credit in the banking system, they've been doing the same with the gold. So I've heard numbers from 45 to 100 times. That means for every ounce of gold, they've oversold it 45 to 100 times, which means only one person out of 45, one entity, would actually get the coin, for example, if it was just talking about coins, or the ounce, or the bullion bar. And so here is what they did on the weekend. Fascinating how these things happen on the weekend. Pay close attention. What better way to make sure there's no longer any gold than to destroy the lack of evidence? And this is what they did. They had on Sunday, yesterday, a fire in the vault of JP Morgan Chase. A journalist on the scene is right here taking pictures. You can read the article. And they pointed out in the article that JP Morgan's gold inventory plunged 66% on Friday to an all-time low of 46,000 ounces. And with reportedly over 502,000 ounces still standing that they're supposed to deliver on for the June gold contract, how are you going to do that? Just think about it. If it were you, what would you be doing? This is what the journalist is showing us.
There's like 7 fire engines here, and maybe 4 ambulances. I haven't seen anyone come out in a gurney, so I don't think anyone's harmed. Mind you, also, this is the weekend. Also, I was told by a fireman that the reason for this is that there was a fire in the basement of the JP Morgan Chase building. A fire in the basement of the JP Morgan Chase building. I don't know how big it was. I don't know if anyone was injured. I hope no one was injured because it's weekend, and I mean, as it is weekend, and it's all maintenance workers. I think there's no one really doing any business here today, so whatever. Not that that would be any better, but you get the point. It's maintenance workers here today, so that's largely no one. I haven't seen anyone on a gurney, so it's probably fine. No one got injured, which is a good thing.
You can watch the rest. He's just live streaming it. And the fact is, Fire Department New York tweet confirmed that the fire was in a commercial vault. What better way to, oh, I'm sorry, we had a fire, we can't respond right now. Games. Just remember, they're making a movie. We're watching a movie. Here's another article I wanted you to have in the links. Trust in gold, not Bernanke, as the United States promote bullion. And this is the list of different states in the nation that are actually considering passing law that the gold and silver would be legal tender, trying to give the people an option of using money that won't lose purchasing power to inflation. We haven't seen anything yet. So there's some regulatory barriers, and it's a nice little article. The fact is, there are 13 states right now that have laws that have either passed them or are looking to pass them in turning gold and silver into legal tender. Again, until we fix the money system, we're going to be facing the tyranny. We really are. Now, this was a classic link and article. And this is a quick article that explains this new website. It's called the Corporate Open Corporates, and these people have researched all of the connections. I've been talking about the corporate shell game, how they have all these corporations and they'll be stacked like this, and you don't know who owns what. They're playing the games as like a con game. That's why I use it like this, because it's like, where's the button, as they move all of these little shells around and cheat people out of their money. This is an example of Goldman Sachs, which has 4,000 separate corporate entities, and other facts about multinationals you might not want to know, but you probably should. And so this is an example on this chart. So this is down here, this is the GSCP 2000 GmbH CCH Holding 2, It's one of 739 subsidiaries registered in the Cayman Islands. And let's see, here's the ownership chain. Goldman Sachs Group, Inc., GS Employee Funds 2000 Offshore GP, LLC, GS Employee Fund 2000 Offshore LP, GS Capital Partners 2000 Employee something or other KG, GSCP 2000 GmbH CCH Holding 2. Now, what I've also got for you is this live link. So this is really rather fun to play with. What it's showing is exactly how they have gamed these multinational banks, central banks, have gamed this system, our whole planet. So let's just take Bank of America. And notice if I can just highlight any one of these little buttons, any one of the little dots, the blue ones. So this is PPM Monarch Bay Funding LLC in North Carolina, one of 1,376 subsidiaries registered in the United States. And the control chain is Bank of America Corporation, NB Holdings Corp., BAC North America Holding, BANA Holding Corp., Bank of America NA, Pinehurst Trading. So notice Bank of America NA is like 4 steps down in the shell game. Pinehurst Trading Inc., PPM Monarch Bay Funding. Here, let's go to one of these, the red ones. These are the tax-free. These are the what's the word I'm thinking of? These are the overseas investments in the tax-free places. And this is investments 2234 Overseas Fund 18BV. And so then you see the control chain. You can read it up above. You can see how they pop. And then you'll see that this company, I must have just briefly moved the mouse, and so now it's controlled by this company. This is a fascinating exposure, item by item by item. They've done massive amount of investigation for this. This is very, very helpful. Use it as best you can. Now, what I really wanted to talk about that's very, very, very important. This now is of prime importance. This is just the beginning of the tyranny that we've been hearing about. And so this is the NSA's Utah Data Center, and they are opening that up, and they are collecting. It's going to be able to handle some kind of bizarre number that I can't even say without reading it. I mean, we're way beyond quadrillion. And what they're doing is collecting absolutely everything. They are collecting entire conversations. They're storing everything, and they can search it like that. This is the point. And this just informs, this article is a very good one to read. I'm not going to read the whole thing, of course, but while this whistleblower was at the NSA, he was able to see the identities of numerous targets of surveillance, which included high-level U.S. government officials. In the evenings, NSA analysts would be given handwritten notes on yellow legal pad paper listing contact information for targets, including Barack Obama, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, former CIA Director David Petraeus, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Republican Senator John McCain, Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein. Other targets include multiple three-star generals, admirals, lawyers, members of the Senate and the House, members of intelligence committees and the armed forces. And what the point is, which has been stated in other articles, whatever information they can get, they can use to control. And so what is being pointed out in this article is that just this week, and even in today's New York Times, we've been reminded on more than one occasion that our nation's leaders tell us one thing as they move in the completely opposite direction. They're controlled. And this is the point. They will take all of this information and they will use it for their purposes, not to help you. It'll be against you and me. And here's the 10 most disturbing things you should know about the FBI since 9/11. They've abused the U.S. Patriot Act 2008 amendments to the Attorney General's guidelines. They do use this to do racial and ethnic mapping. The unrestrained data collection and data mining, which was just reinforced by a judge, giving the government continued power to do this in a lawsuit, suppresses internal dissent. And I want you to now understand, please understand, that you and I are now terrorists because we do not agree with this. We are against this. We don't think this is what government should be doing, so now we are terrorists. And that is now the definition of terrorism. So when they suppress internal dissent, that's on the whistleblowers. They're arresting them. They're targeting the journalists. They're thwarting congressional oversight. They're targeting First Amendment activity. They're detaining people without cause, no charges. You're just a terrorist. They can do what they want. And we've been seeing little episodes of this, particularly as we've been starting to pay attention to it. We've become more aware of that. And there's a no-fly list to pressure Americans abroad to become informants. And so the fact is the pressure is just increasing, and we're now aware of it. Here is what was written just today. America no longer has a functioning judicial system. The Department of Justice told a federal court this week that the NSA's spying cannot be challenged in a court of law. That's especially dramatic, given that numerous federal judges and legal scholars, including a formal FISA judge, say that the FISA spying court is nothing but a kangaroo court. It's not true justice, and of course we already knew that. Deep down, we knew that. Also this week, the Department of Justice told a federal court that the courts cannot review the legality of the government's assassination by drone of Americans. And they have the word here, abroad. But you have already seen, a couple of months ago, the videos. There's one by Rachel Maddow, one by Fox News, Shepard Smith. They are almost screaming, how can this be? How can this be? Well, this is what we're facing. And nobody, the government, is not going to really care what they say or ask or do. They're just going to do it. And this is what we have to really rise up against. This is the tyranny that we need to rise up against, because this is going to affect people's lives. And so the fact is, there's all kinds of links. It'll be linked in the comment section. Please review it. Two former U.S. Supreme Court justices have warned that America is sliding into tyranny. People have been talking about it. Many of the videos that we watch were done in 2010, or sometimes even way earlier. But nevertheless, this is the state of the union as it is. A court rules that journalists can't keep their sources secret anymore. So there you go. This is full-on attack by the courts against our rights. And it is what it is. I want you to be aware of that. Here is an article that I really want you to, I'm going to just briefly show and talk about, but it really does talk about the credibility of his sources, the fact that he thinks martial law is coming soon. These sources are telling him it is. And what will it be like to live under martial law? His sources state the internet will be taken down immediately. We already knew that deep down. So globalists will see it as an opportunity that, you know, we can get galvanized and against those criminals. And so they're gonna stop the internet. They're gonna take all bank accounts, pension funds, and 401ks will be frozen, and they will steal them. Extreme travel restrictions will be put in place. Random house-to-house searches will be conducted. And what are they looking for? Anything they can find that they can use as a charge against you. So that could be guns, it could be food storage, because you're not supposed to do that. If you do that, they'll just take it. That is the rights. And so he's recommending you look at some of the videos that are out there about the Boston martial law, and you'll see the armaments, the tanks in the street, the weapons pointed at the windows. I'm reminding you of Lindsey Williams. I did have that link on my little update last week, And about maybe 2 days after I sent that out, somebody emailed me and said, hey, it doesn't work. That's been taken down. I put his Lindsey Williams website up there. Basically, his homepage pretty much summarizes the conversation. So why impose martial law this soon? Why is it coming? Because we're waking up. That's exactly why is it proceeding so fast? Too many of us have wakened up to the tyranny. When they've got MSNBC and Fox News reporters, presenters, hosts screaming about FEMA camps and pointing out that this is exactly coming from Obama and crew, they've got to lock us down. So we need to push back as hard as possible right now, any way we possibly can. They're going to remove dissidents, probably kill them. They're going to use food as a weapon. So these are things that I've already talked about, and I'm going to link the little show that I did in May 28th so that you'll have it real handy in the comment section here. This is a website that I believe is one of the most powerful websites available about all of these things, and I would highly recommend that you share this YouTube site with everybody you know, and I mean today. We're going to listen to Suzanne. Remember, she wrote that first article that we just talked about, and she's telling us that what to listen for, which will give us 72 hours before martial law is cracked down. That's what her sources are saying. But this has some very good other videos, different playlists that you can watch and listen to. The more you know, the more your eyes will be opened, and the more you can share with other people, because they may not listen to something, but they may listen to something else. You understand what I'm talking about. That's what we've been talking about, trying to connect with our family, friends, and neighbors at some level where they will listen. Let's give a listen to Susan.
Hey guys, SGT here, and I have a very special guest on the line. She's a brilliant writer. She's new to the scene, but she's moving mountains all on her own. Her name is Suzanne Posel. You know her work from Occupy Corporatism, Activist Post. You know her work from InfoWars, from SGT Report. Everybody is picking up Suzanne's material. Suzanne, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Suzanne, you're really a great writer. I really have to give you kudos on your
Thank
research,
you.
your hyperlinks, you're vetting your information, and that's why everybody is picking up your articles, because they're very, very detailed, but you're talking about some very scary things. We do that too here at SGT Report. I talk to a lot of smart people. I spoke with James Wesley Rawls not too long ago, who said, and I quote, "We're entering into an age of deception and betrayal by our own government." And Suzanne, that's basically what you've been writing about across the board, whether it's vaccine information or your article titled U.S. Army Tactical Manuals Describe How to Control Domestic Insurrection. Why don't you let people know why you wrote that and what it means?
I wrote that because there's a bunch of articles that have come out. It started with Rex 84, and it's turned into a bunch of manuals and a bunch of executive orders that put in place martial law. And the military likes to perform war games, so that's why we're seeing military on the streets practicing. They are actually practicing. The tanks that we see on the streets and the National Guard patrolling neighborhoods and the practices that they're doing with our local police department, this is all in preparation for martial law, so that when they do actually lock down the country, they've got everything secured.
People that don't run in these circles and to whom this information is new, Suzanne, they love to say that we're all conspiracy tinfoil hat-wearing nuts because we still live in a republic. But I think what we're starting to see, for anybody who is objective at all, is we're seeing a totalitarian system now unveil itself. And ever since essentially 9/11 happened, it's been more and more of these draconian measures that are leading us right down the road to martial law. What do you think will be the cause of the declaration of martial law? Will it be a financial collapse or something altogether different? We've seen a lot of false flags. What do you think would be the cause of martial law?
Well, I had written an article earlier this week from a U.S. Marine informant and also a Deutsche Bank informant. And in 2008, we should have collapsed. We should have gone the way of Greece. The only reason why we didn't was because the global elite and the banking cartels put it off on the Eurozone and collapsed the Eurozone in order to gain sovereign debt. Sovereign debt is when you actually own the physical land. You don't just own the buildings. You don't just own the people and the money. They're extracting wealth so that the only thing that the governments will have left to give them is the actual land that they own. While they're doing this, they're amassing this wealth in order to redirect it toward martial law endeavor, and not just in America, but globally. They want to lock down every country and force us into global governance, eventually force us into a global reserve currency that is like the Bancor that the IMF has been pushing. So in 2008, when Hank Paulson went to the Congress and said that they had to bail out the banks for $700 billion or martial law would be declared, they weren't lying. They went ahead and passed that, and they gave this money to the Chinese. But the Chinese, since then, have been backing their currency, their fiat currency, in gold. And China's been doing this, India's been doing this, and Russia's been doing this.
Okay, so this is just to confirm that I'm here trying to make a mortgage payment in cash. I have $1,380 sitting in front of me for a $1,371 mortgage payment, and Bank of America is rejecting a cash payment of my mortgage.
Sir?
Here in Lakeport, California. Is that correct?
So you need to turn that off.
Is that correct?
You need to turn that off, sir.
This is what I've just been told. Bank of America has just refused to accept my mortgage payment in cash and is insisting on kind of a wire transfer. Apparently, in America, cash does not pay the mortgage anymore, is what I'm being told today in Lakeport.
If you go back in history, the reason why we went after Gaddafi was because he was presenting the dinar, which was a gold-backed currency that he was getting together with other countries like in Africa. He was going to subvert the global reserve currency, which is the U.S. dollar, and destroy its complete value by backing it with gold, because the central bankers haven't dealt in gold since 1934. So in order to avoid all of this, the central bankers are going after Iran right now, and that's what this war is about, to try and stop India and China and Russia from buying Iranian oil with gold. Because if they destroy the global reserve currency, which is the U.S. dollar, then what we're going to have is we're going to wake up one morning and we're going to be like Greece. And that's going to cause complete panic in this country. So since they already set off the financial time bomb in the Eurozone, they know that it's just a matter of time before it hits our shores. So they're preparing for it. That's why we see all the movement on the streets. People are seeing tanks being moved in Burbank, California. They're seeing, in the forested areas, they're seeing police, military, escorting them off the property. National forested lands, this is public land, supposedly. By the way, it's owned by UNESCO, and it's a World Heritage Site, so it's actually owned by the UN. But anyway, people are seeing military on their streets. In Anaheim, California, they announced that because of the protest, it was a state of emergency, which I feel is a code word for martial law. I think they're trying to beta test to see if they can go ahead and lock down the country by doing it incrementally through different stages, causing problems, problem, reaction, solution, causing problems in cities, and then go ahead and locking it down and seeing how it works, kind of like a war game. One thing I forgot to mention was through the Deutsche Bank informant, I was alerted to the idea that they're going to possibly create like an internet virus that would attack the banking system. You know, like they're using Flame and Sussnet. And there's a new cousin of these two that is going around Iran. Mm-hmm. And what they would do was, on a Friday afternoon, they would say, well, we have to shut down the banking system because there's a virus in all the banks. You won't be able to use your ATMs over the weekend, but on Monday morning you'll be fine. Well, if you hear anything like that, you have 72 hours before they roll out martial law.
So wait a minute, Suzanne, you're saying that if you see anything like that in the news media or otherwise, you have 72 hours? Why don't you repeat that, help people understand what that means?
when they're going to roll out martial law, they think that when the financial collapse hits the shores of the United States, they have 72 hours. So with my Deutsche Bank informant and talks with other people in the alternative media, my contacts, I just think that it's possible that a scenario like this, I'm not saying that this will happen, but a scenario like this, and it would give you something to look for, a little red flag to look for. Let's say that the banks all say that there's a virus in all the banking systems, all of the banks, and they have to shut down, like on a Friday. We know that the Obama administration loves to do things on a Friday afternoon or when we're celebrating New Year's Eve. So Friday afternoon, they would say they're going to shut down the banks and get rid of this virus over the weekend. And on Monday morning, everything would be back up. Over the weekend, you wouldn't be able to use your ATM or pay any bills online. But everything will be fine on Monday morning. That is your red flag. You have 72 hours from that moment to do whatever you were planning on doing, get to wherever you were planning on getting to, hunker down whatever you were planning on hunkering down, because they're going to unroll martial law in 72 hours from that moment, whatever scenario they intend to unroll. And I believe that it has to do with the banks, because they're stealing money from us left and right. In fact, I've gotten reports from insiders that they're taking money out of private checking accounts. They're also stealing heirlooms. The Bank of America has stolen heirlooms out of people's safety deposit boxes and ship them from one coast to another, and then claim that they didn't know that it wasn't that it was this customer's property, and then they'll send it back, but they never do. They're trying to squeeze out as much money as possible. And with MF Global and John Corzine, that was a beta test to see if they could take secured customer funds and get away with it, and they did. They're coming for our private checking accounts next. They're looking for as much money as they can to fund this not only domestic but global police state. So like I said, if you hear of anything with the banking industry, and I personally think it might be a false flag with an internet virus or a virus in the banking systems as far as their computers go, then you have 72 hours from that time to go ahead and do what you were planning on doing.
Wow. Well, I mean, we don't know if that will happen, but if it does, if people see these signs that Suzanne just talked about, Suzanne, you may have just saved some lives. I mean, for those who live in inner cities, in big cities, in scary places, be it downtown Chicago, New York, L.A., you may have saved some lives. People can get out if they have 72 hours. If they don't have but a couple of hours and there's traffic jams, they're not going anywhere. That's really frightening information. Let me ask you this. In your article from earlier this week, titled DHS and U.S. Military Make Final Preparations Before Announcing Martial Law, about 6 paragraphs down you wrote, the acquisition of armory by the DHS and contracts for bulletproof glass for checkpoint booths to be positioned strategically throughout the nation on public highways have heightened awareness that the U.S. government is preparing for a well-planned domestic military action. DHS armored vehicles have been sighted on highways in Kentucky and across the country, I might add. I guess what I'm wondering, Suzanne, from your expert view, do you think that the military could actually lock down this country? We're geographically gigantic. They had a hard time locking down Baghdad. The reality of this is that the PSYOP, I think, is against the people, to get the people to stand down before any of this ever happens. Because if they move on Chicago or any major American city, it's going to send a message to the rest of the patriots in this geographically huge country that it's time to take action. It's time to embrace the Declaration of Independence and throw off these despots. What do you make of what I'm saying here? What do you think the reality is of them being able to lock down this country in any sort of martial law capacity?
I agree with you that it's going to be difficult, and that's why they've done beta testing. The NATO summit, we saw that they were trying to do that there as well. They've allocated foreign troops. They've been training with the Polish army and the Russian army. The Russian army has shown up in Colorado. There have been reports that the Russian army have been starting the fires. And the reports that I got, that I put in that article that you just mentioned, the fires were started right in front of areas that were militarily secured. So it's my understanding that they might have been starting the fires to try and get people out of the way, get people moved out of the way so they wouldn't see what they're doing. DHS has contracted independent contractors to cover up the holes for the underground bases that they're building. So their use of foreign troops, which goes right back to Rex 84, back in the early 80s, I don't think they're going to have a problem. They're going to bring NATO forces onto the streets and to work with them, and that doubles or triples their military capacity. I think they're going to definitely try this. I think they're going to use foreign troops along with them. The foreign troops also serve two purposes. They're extra security, and also if something does happen, well, they can blame it on the foreign troops. You know, they can say, oh my God, the Polish army was here. Oh, the Russians were doing this. We should go and get the Russians now.
Yeah, I think what this government is now doing with these false flags with what I'm calling these false flags that we saw in Aurora and in Wisconsin, is they're doing their level best before martial law happens to disarm the people. What do you make of what I just said there, and what do you make of what I'm calling false flags in Aurora and Wisconsin, Suzanne?
They are definitely false flags. James Holmes had ties all the way going back to his grandfather with DARPA and mind control techniques, and he was studying mind control. He worked with the Salk Institute on mind control and flicker fusion, which is where they insert images into the screen while you're watching television or even on a website, and it moves so fast that only your subconscious picks it up. In Aurora, his apartment was booby-trapped with homemade bombs. And the Pentagon has just come out and said that a lot of people homegrown terrorists are building these homemade bombs. And so they're asking Congress to relax Pasta Comitatus in order to respond to this, to allow military.
Not very happy news. Here's Lindsey Williams' website, and this is why I want you to take very thoughtful care about what you are doing right now with your resources and what you could do with them that might better your situation. Here is the article, and Kissinger, who actually says, publicly stated, that anyone that opposes the New World Order are terrorists. That's why I can assure you that I'm afraid most of us are probably going to be classed as terrorists, and yet we look at it as patriots. Now, one of the things that they do want to do is decide where you live, what you can eat, everything. And this, I haven't really talked about it much. I've mentioned it to some people. They say, I don't even know what Agenda 21 is. So I'm just going to throw a few little links in here so that you can have some research, help in researching. And this, if you look at this map, this happens to be of California and Nevada, and all the red spots are core preserves and corridors, little to no human use. Humans aren't going to be allowed in these red parts. The yellow parts are buffer zones, and they're highly regulated. And the green parts, can you find a green part? The green parts are where people can live. So here's some green parts. Here's a few little green parts. All of us, look at these little green parts. I think there's 34 million people in California. We're all going to be crammed into these little spots. That's the plan. Here is the a report for Agenda 21 that you're welcome. You now have the link, and you can research that. And the key with Agenda 21, one of the keys, is it's going to be locally enforced. It'll be tyranny from your neighbors and your electeds. And so this is the list. That these are all of the counties and cities around the planet and all the countries that have signed up. So you can actually search this list for your city. Now you'll notice I'm going to start scrolling down. Austria, Brazil, Canada, Finland. I mean, you just see the countries scrolling by until we get down here to the United States. And here's the United States. And so literally, if you want to just see every place in Florida, every place in Oregon, every place in Minnesota, you can actually just go Control F and type that in. Well, let's see, let's go NV, Nevada. And then you can see it just highlights Nevada in the list. And so we can see that Washoe County is Nevada has already signed on to enforce Agenda 21 on their people. This is the plan. I just looked up Sonoma County, and the county, the major cities in the county have all signed up. They're all on the ICLEI list. So this is just a help for you in your analysis of your particular situation. Now, this is the link to the show I did on May 28 about the tyranny. And now as I look back, that was 2 months ago, it's tyranny about the money, the water, the savings. They're going to take your money out of the banks, mobility. They're going to lock down transportation. Checkpoints. You're always going to have to go through checkpoints. Everybody will know exactly where you are so that they can control you. Of course, we're not really talking right now about the chemtrails in the air, but chances are if you're having any kind of allergy reaction, it's probably not due to the pollen. Security, food, our homes, and of course they already have all the laws for the presidential dictatorship. He can just take it like that. And the article I showed you early on, the very first one, about the martial law, down at the bottom of that it talks about all the different laws, executive orders that are already in place, and it seems like we can't get them removed. So this is what's really that we're facing. This is the point, and this is very important. So please consider it seriously. And I really wanted to show you a coincidence. This 12-year-old claims that in her searching of the genetic history that all of our presidents are related. It's really rather fascinating.
It's a great thing for history.
George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, William Howard Taft, and President Barack Obama. One young girl traced them all back to one common ancestor.
They're all cousins and all grandsons of John Lackland.
It's the first family tree of its kind. Pouring through more than 500,000 names for months, 12-year-old Bridge Ann d'Avignon discovered that all the U.S. presidents, except Martin Van Buren, are related to the former King of England, John Lackland Plantagenet, signer of the Magna Carta in 1215.
Mildred Reed is his first great-grandmother on George Washington, and on Obama, Mildred Reed is the 10th great-grandmother.
It started as an assignment to research her own lineage, tracing it back to roots in France. But Bridge Ann wanted to branch out.
Well, I think we just all go back somewhere. It's just a matter of proving it.
She started with George Washington, but unlike other professional genealogists that only looked at the male family lines, Bridge Ann was able to link the presidents together using both male and female ancestry. Before this, historians had only been able to link 22 family trees.
She kind of created a triumph of women's studies here.
Bridge Ann also figured out she's an 18th cousin of President Obama, something she hopes to be able to share with him in person.
I've written a letter to Obama, but I just gotten standard reply. I hope to meet the president and explain it to him.
In Paso Robles, Adam Rakusin, your Central Coast News.
There are no coincidences. Signing off, this is CJ. Let's constantly be sure that we are buggering the banksters and the bureaucrats and politicians. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you probably quite soon with short little updates and foreclosure defense discussions with attorneys when we can get them to share with us.
When I was a lass, I was proud of me class, like my father and mother before me. They taught me to fight for my civil rights, but it's always the same old story.
system is bent and the money's all spent.
We're badgered from every direction.
The workers get taxed while the wealthy relax. With nary a moment's reflection. Where there's brass, there's muck, and they don't give an arse, 'cause they're programmed against insurrection. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules, and if you're one of them, bugger you, and if you're one of them, bugger you. Now all you good people with passion to vent, don't give up the struggle for justice. But I've done my time on the protesters' line, and these days I show my dissent